Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Sales. If you're looking for actionable insights and real-world tools to turbocharge your sales starting tomorrow, well, you're in the right place. Your host, Kay Miller, earned the affectionate nickname Muffler Mama when she sold more automotive mufflers than anyone else in the world. In this podcast, Kay will talk to another superstar woman in sales as they reveal uncopyable strategies you can use to rack up more leads, snag dream clients, and take your sales numbers through the roof. Stay tuned and get ready to make more sales and how about this? More money.
Today, I'm here with Lacey Houston, who is an Assistant Vice President of Client Partnership and Performance at MCI US Sales. She manages a sales team that's responsible for selling event booths and sponsorships for several uniquely different association clients. Lacey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kay. I'm happy to be here.
You know, you and I had an awesome conversation the other day. I found you through Dan Cole, who is an associate of both of ours, and he couldn't say enough great things about you. So, of course, I was excited to talk to you. And then our conversation the other day was so fun. And the conversation was very memorable. So I would like to kick off with the fact that one of your mantras is, they will remember Lacey Houston. So what do you mean by that? And do you have any examples?
I definitely do, Kay. So one of the things is we have to acknowledge as salespeople, we're not the only person trying to get that prospect's attention. So you have to realize you're 1 in 100 that is making outreach to that person, that director of marketing, that VP of sales. So it's cutting through the noise and making yourself be memorable. It's kind of one of those points, Kay, that you touch on in your book is about your brand promise. They're buying you, so you have to be memorable. So I will say in my career, I might not make the most outbound call, but I close good numbers. And what's the difference? Why am I a closer? Because I stand out in a crowd. At the end of the day, did I make an impact? They might not remember what I was calling them about, Kate, but they're going to remember Lacey Houston. And I always say with some of my clients, they've all got a Lacey story. It's genuine. It's authentic, but we all have stories. Can I tell you a story, Kay? Is that okay? Can I give you an example?
Definitely. I love stories.
Okay. So let's paint the picture. We are in the middle of pandemic when we are all just learning how to do things remote. We got our cameras on because everyone turned on their cameras. We're going to resonate and put a face to a name kind of thing. And I was pitching a very large opportunity to a very well-known company in the medical field. And I'm a working mother, married, 2 young kids. And I was at home with my children and I had camera on before backgrounds were a thing. And my son was potty training at the time. And here I am mid-pitch. I am passionate. I am focused on the screen because I am pitching to 15 people at this organization. And all of a sudden, one of them is like, Lacey, something's happening behind you. I look in my camera. My son, who was potty training, had gone number 2 on the floor in front of 15 of my prospect clients. And I was like, oh my God. By the time I went in a paper towel to clean up the mess, Kay, my dog had eaten it. I had one of my largest prospect clients watch not only my son go to the bathroom on the floor behind me, but then they had to watch my dog eat it. And I closed the deal. They are still a long-term client. And every time I see them on site, one of the VP of sales internationally was like, Lacey, I still tell that story from 2020 at my Thanksgiving table every single year. So basically, we have bonded over trauma. They might not remember what they did, but they remember this woman, Lacey Houston, and what went down on camera screen. You know, it's like finding interlacing. How do you roll with that? After we watched that, I had a one-liner. I said, well, let's keep going. Nothing can get worse than what you just saw on the screen. And I think that's that point of a salesperson, being yourself, being authentic, you know, being a better version of yourself, but striving to be memorable in a way that sets you apart from other people.
And, you know, that goes to show you that even a bad story Look at the bright side. It made you memorable. I mean, it's hilarious. And I don't know if you ever expected it to do what it did in making a mark on this client. You said it was one of the biggest sales you've ever made. And so you really talk about making lemons into lemonade. You're very good at rolling with things and being Lacey, being authentic to who you are. And it has really worked for you. And it's really refreshing.
Thank you. I really believe in using your voice. And most of the time you are making phone calls. When you get a meeting and your camera on, I always say, anytime you have a meeting, turn that camera on, let them see you, let them see the real person. Who cares if you have a messy bun and you're wearing a t-shirt? I'd rather them see the passion of what I'm delivering versus like a robot. So I always say, turn the camera on when you can, so they can see what you're really trying to sell. I talk with my hands. I'm always on screen using my hands.
It's such a better communications tool. Like you, if I ever have the chance to Zoom with someone versus make a phone call, I always use Zoom. And a great example is the other day that we talked, and I just felt like I knew you so much better than if I'd just been having a phone call with you. So it also speaks to the point of getting comfortable and getting good on Zoom, because I think it is getting better, but a lot of people still don't feel comfortable in front of the camera, and salespeople need to do that because it just really talk about building rapport. It's a great way to build rapport. So those of you listening, I have a huge recommendation. Practice using Zoom, get good at Zoom. And it's uncomfortable at first, but it gets a lot better as you go. So that's a great point.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, well, you can keep talking, but I also wanted to talk about how you do deal with phone calls, because you also have some great stories and tips on making phone calls, getting hung up on, things like that.
Well, it kind of is a great segue. I always say in sales, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Sales is uncomfortable. If you are doing what you are supposed to be doing, at the end of the day, you should feel tired and feel like you pushed yourself past your normal. Like if you're becoming complacent in sales and you're not growing and your sales aren't moving to, get what you need to get done and cut through the noise, you have to push. You have to ask the question that might feel a little uncomfortable. You maybe turn on the camera and present it. So it's some of those places. So I am comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's how I manage my sales team. So especially on the phone, I believe in being memorable, but like startling statements. I always tell the sales team, how many calls right now does it take to get a live person on the phone? Versus, did you get a live one today? How many calls? Let's pull your call report up. Okay. X amount of calls. Did you get any live ones? Getting a live person on the phone is not the norm anymore. You got to have a good email and a good follow-up voicemail, in there. But when you get a live person, you better be ready they're not really trying. They don't know who they're answering. They're not answering you to be prepared. So I am a firm believer in a startling statement. That is sometimes if I get a live one, I will literally joke with them, Kay, and say, I'm sorry, I was getting ready to leave you a voicemail. Thank you for answering and being my live person today. I appreciate that. And they're kind of like, oh, what? Like, who is this? And I'm bubbly and I'm memorable. They're kind of like, who is this person talking to me and why did I answer the phone? And then I'll bring it back to who I am. And mostly it's like, listen, I might have caught you off guard here, but this is what I'm trying to do. Give them that elevator pitch. And can I set up 15 minutes with you? And that's the point. You want to get their undivided attention.
And that's very non-intimidating. You say, I just want 15 minutes. And you're right. Hardly anyone answers their phone anymore. So when you do, it's like bing, 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 it's great. But when you do leave a voicemail, you had one story that you told me, and I thought this was awesome, that you say, okay, I'm leaving you a voicemail, which you're probably not going to listen to. You're going to be reading the AI transcription on your phone. And you're just real. You're not super serious. You've got, some lightness and humor in what you do. And like you said, that is Lacey. And
Right.
You are a sales manager. You manage a team. And I really liked what you talked about when you don't want to create a bunch of Laceys. You're telling your sales team, find your own inner Lacey. Find what works for you and be authentic.
Yes, Kate, because I think a lot of people, when they're trying to get better in sales, they read books, they listen to podcasts like yours, and they're like, what can I do and what can I take away? And they may try something for a little bit. Yes, you need to be uncomfortable, but, pushing yourself, but you still need to be yourself, because when you come off fake, it's not great. And it's not, it's not well received. No one wants to be a used car salesman running off of a script. So I always say, be yourself. And if you can't deliver it this way, I'm not saying you have to say it how I said it, but even push back on them in some way, shape, or form. And like, I always joke around, I'm leaving you a voicemail. You're probably not going to listen to this. You're reading this. I'm asking for 15 minutes of your time. I'm going to shoot you an email with a Calendly link where you can quickly book 15 minutes. This is why I think we should connect. And after that, we can decide if we need to move further.
And of course, my book is called Uncopyable Sales Secrets. And, products and services are copyable, but you are not copyable. So by being authentic, like you said, having a story, but just connecting with your own personality. I mean, clients, prospects can sense that. And it really seriously is your biggest opportunity to be uncopyable. And I'm sure you agree with that, because that's the philosophy that you live by.
It really is. It's like, how do you stand out in a crowd, in a sales environment? And when I am selling, it is a consultative approach with my sales team, but we're not the only, we've got a lot of competition. So when people are making an investment in us, they're buying into your brand, like you talk about in the book. They're buying into you and what you're selling them. So you do need to stand out in a way.
One thing we talked about before we started this call is that I said, I noticed in the pre-call that you used my name a fair amount. You didn't overuse it, but I really liked that. And it's something I haven't done. And I practiced a little with you, and I really liked that. I'm going to be adding that to what I do. And of course, you have to do what feels natural to you. But I think, as you pointed out, it proves that I'm really focused on you. This is all about you. Everyone loves their own name. So I really liked that point that you made about, using someone's name.
And like we've talked about being authentic. We keep talking about that, being uncopyable, from your book. But I am a lot for some people, but I'm like, some people I may put them off. Like I do use people's names. I did have an experience where someone was like, Lacey, I feel like you don't remember my name, and that's why you keep saying it. And I said, oh my goodness, thank you for that feedback. That's not how I'm intending it to go. But you just said, Kay, that you like it. So it's one of those things that I'm a lot. Like, there's a lot of Lacey. I'm memorable. I'm out there. I'm bubbly. It is truly authentically me. And it's a lot. Some people love it. Most people do. And some people are like, that's a lot. I need you to pull back. So these are some of those things when you're trying tactics and how to be you. Try it. What works, and make sure it's working within your comfort zone.
And you don't need to sell to everyone. The old spray and pray and just email blasts, all those things that don't work anyway. You don't need to sell everyone. I think you said, you find the 20% of, your moose, which is your ideal target customer, that you are just right for. And those are the ones that you can offer the most, that they can get the most out of the relationship as well. And so that's a great concept and a great reminder for you listening that you don't have to sell everyone. You don't want to sell everyone. You want to find the right people to sell. And like you said, this other customer with that interesting story is a long-term customer. And unless you're going door to door selling windows or roofing products and a one and done, if you have any kind of a relationship, selling process, you need to be unique with the customer, be authentic, and make it all about them.
Absolutely. And something else I like what you talk about in the book, Kay, is like celebrating your failure. As salespeople, we are paid to be told no 90% of our day, which means you only get the yeses enough. And, so you got to celebrate your failures, because not every day is a home run. There is the point there. And I always say, if you're not getting hung up on, then you're not doing your job. And so when I talk about what sets you apart from a good salesperson and an exceptional salesperson, is what do you do when you get hung up on? I'll tell you what I do. This is how I deliver it. If I just had a rough phone call and I'm pitching them and then I hang up on them, I call them back. And you know what I say, Case? I said, I'm sorry, did we get disconnected? Sure, but I just want to make sure that, that was what it was. I don't want to, drop her call if you were still interested. They either answer and they're like, what is this person doing? That's being uncomfortable. Like, that was the push. I'm like, did they just hang up on me? I think not. I'm going to call them back one more time. And that's another push. But I always say, if you're not getting hung up on, you're not doing your job, which means you're not making enough noise. You're not making enough outbound activity. Celebrate your failures. Celebrate the hangups. Don't sit here and be a sad about it. Be like, I did something. I got through to someone. They didn't want to hear me. On to the next. But let's acknowledge I did something today.
Today's podcast is sponsored by the acclaimed book, Uncopyable Sales Secrets, How to Create an Unfair Advantage and Outsell Your Competition by Kay Miller. Put the secrets in this book to work and you'll make more sales, grow your network, and become a top earner. See the show notes or go to Amazon.com and search for Uncopyable Sales Secrets to order the book right now.
You did. And I love that line about when you called them back and said, I'm sorry, did we got disconnected. And how does that work usually when you do say that?
Sometimes they'll get really snippy back and like, I meant to hang up on you. I'm not interested. Goodbye. Take me off your list. Appreciate the feedback. Absolutely. Thank you for it. Right. Done. Other people, like, they won't answer. So you leave the voicemail. Like, I'm not sure if you're going through spotty service or what happened, but I just want to, in closing, wrap up on this is why I'm calling you. And this is what I'm trying to talk to you about. I'm looking for 15 minutes of your time. And other people are like, I can't believe you. I definitely meant to hang up on you, Lacey, but because you called me back, tell me what you want. Like, what are you looking for?
Right. And you know what? There's no chance that you'll make a sale if you just don't call them back. You said at one point, no is the beginning of the conversation. So by taking a risk, you used the word audacity, that you have to be audacious. And if you don't take a risk, then you won't get results. And again, your team members all have different styles, but in some way, all salespeople that succeed do have to have that audacity and that determination. I use the word grit. I love that book by Angela Duckworth, that sometimes you just have to have grit and just get through it.
You got to push. And that's the point. It's like, we get paid to be told no 90% of the time. You get that reject email. What do you do with it? What do you do? How are you uncopyable? How are you memorable? You push back on them. Thank you for taking the time to tell me no. Can I ask what led you to that decision of why you're telling me no? Ask them why. Why? They'll either respond and tell you something and give you something that you can try and go back to them with, or they'll ignore you. But at least you knew that you pushed it, that one more push. That's what makes you stand out, is everyone going back and asking when you get rejected, why did you reject me? Probably not. They just take it and move on to the next.
Right. That's what it takes sometimes. And like you said in our conversation, you don't go cry in the corner when you get a no, because no is definitely part of the sales process. I wanted to talk a little bit more about how you talk about managing your team. One thing that you recommend, another thing I'm working on, is smiling. Smiling when you're on Zoom, but also smiling all the time. Your body language matters even when you're on the phone. And you talked about coaching one of your salespeople and having them stand in front of the mirror, right?
Yeah. So I had a great sales rep. Okay. He was a grinder. He was the one, he was always putting out the call activity, and he was a producer. Was it because he was an over the top amazing salesperson? No, it's because he had the grit and he pushed and he did the work. You say to make 55 calls a day, I'm going to make 65 just because those are the numbers. And you said that. But I was like, you know what? This is how I think we can make you even be better. We put a mirror next to his phone and he would look at himself as he was, and we call it smiling and dialing, because people can tell in your voice. They can actually physically hear a difference if you're smiling on the phone call. And this is before Zoom, before the camera was on. But smiling and dialing and using that, it's another way that you stand out in a crowd. You don't sound like a robot. It's another way to sound like you're not reading off of a script. You're being more authentic. And that is the point of when you're trying to be memorable and cut through the noise. These are some of those, it's basic tactics, but I promise you, it makes an impact.
Well, and it's worked for you. And yes, we did talk about scripts, and I have to say some people do use scripts, but when I've been sold with a script, I could smell it a mile away. Now, I think that some people can use that framework, and you mentioned putting it into bullet points so that you have the points that you cover, but you definitely don't want to sound like you're reading or that, this is a rote conversation that you have with everyone. You said if you're a little bit distracted, you say the wrong thing and you say, "Hi, Lacey." "Oh, no, I'm Lacey. You can tell I haven't had my coffee yet." But you're not doing that intentionally. You're just being you.
Right. It's that being authentic. I do think, you spend some really good time in your book, talking about writing your story. Like, how do you want this to do? Almost like manifesting it. If you're new in your sales career and it's a heavy calls, you're grinding, you got to do hunting, prospecting style. Like, how do you want this to be? I call. Do they answer? What happens? What happens when they answer the phone? Well, I want them to say this, and these are the things that I want to go through. And if they say this, it's that roadmap in your head, whether it is in a script, like if they say this, I go that way. If they say this, I go that way. Or be prepared. This is my voicemail script. Pieces like that really manifesting. I use this more now in my time frame of large pitches where I am like, this is where I want this to go. I'm hoping they say this. And if they say this, I will lean into that. But if they say that, very rarely will I say in these large pitches that I'm a part of, am I thrown by something? I'm generally prepared for option A, B, and C and which way it can go. That is a place I think I'm generally very creative and I can think on my toes, which is, I think, a key attribute of salespeople is being able to pivot, go with the flow. And when a customer throws something at you, don't be stuck in deer in the headlights. Flow with it and go. That's actually something in my management style. I work with our salespeople. You know what's something really good for amazing salespeople, Kay, is they're really good at improv, meaning they can go. Someone throws you something, you're not stuck at it. You keep going. So we actually, in my early sales management, I worked on improv with my salespeople. We would do some training tactics I say, start something with the letter A. You got to say something like B, C, D. It's just quick, on your feet, thinking. So you're not deer in a headlight, stuck.
Right. Yeah. Practice makes perfect, or at least it greatly improves. Yeah. Putting yourself in that situation where you don't know what you're going to say. I love the idea that you have these scenarios outlined in your mind. So you know how you respond to their response. And visualizing, manifesting, it really is big. I think, the book, The Secret, I think gave people the idea that you just think about what you want and wish for it and it appears. But no, that's not how it works. You think about what you want to manifest and then you go out and do it. And
Sure.
action is a huge part of that. I'm sure you agree with that, right?
I absolutely do. I do think in the world of sales now, okay, we are moving into when you're getting someone on the phone, they want solution-based selling. So they want you to give them options. Don't make them pick, give them options. So in my manifesting, I'm always big at, I give people 3 options, package A, B, and C. I'm manifesting package C. C is all the bells and whistles, all the upgrades. But 6 out of 10, if they end on package B, it's still more than A. And that's what I love. So I am prepared in my manifesting of here are the 3 things that I'm trying to go for and push them on. And it is that writing out that story and making it go. And we are seeing across the sales industry, many more people want options provided to them instead of here's 1,000 options, pick what you want.
Well, we're all on such information overload. I mean, there are so many choices. I mean, craisins. I love craisins. But now when I go into the store, you have blueberry craisins and sugar-free craisins and all these different kinds of craisins. I'm like, I just want craisins. And yeah, we have so many choices and access to a ton of information. Your customers can go online a lot of times and see all the options, but number one, they're not the expert on what what's going to work for them. And you also, like you said, you boil it down into 3 options. Yes, a good, better, best usually. And yeah, best is awesome. but better is good too. So it's making it easier for the customer. I definitely think getting to know them, and I'm sure that you say, okay, this is what I recommend and why.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
how do you spell out the benefits to the customer?
I think it depends on what you're selling and how you present that. When I'm in the sales role of good, better, best, it's usually large figure investments. And so we start that off with, this is what I heard during our time together. This is what's important to you. The packages we are putting together are going to take care of X, Y, Z, because these are important pieces for you. This is what package A is. This is what you get. Good. This is package B. This is why it is better. This is how it enhances. And C, the best, this is how it accomplishes all those things. So it's a journey and how you lay out that information. I do a lot of proposals in depth. So in PowerPoint, just in visualization. And other times when we're just doing a very transactional, it may be the upgrade of you buy this, but the gum at the checkout line for an extra amount of money, you can get this, and it's high impact, low investment. And some of those are those places of how you're doing those pieces via an email, phone call, check up a box on a contract, or a full-blown presentation deck. But they have to do with them. What's in it for me? Anytime you're trying to sell somebody, you have to relate it back to what's in it for them and how can they benefit from that.
Right. Make it about them. So that is very important. Why don't you explain briefly what exactly it is that you do? Because I mentioned it in the beginning, but let's hear about what you're selling actually and who you're selling it to.
Sure. I manage a sales team that is an extension of association. So we are a third-party vendor that has been hired on by an association to sell their exhibits and sponsorship revenue at their trade shows. So we get to sell some fun things. I work with an array of different associations all across the gamut. There's an association for everything, Kay. And my sales team is in charge of bringing the right kind of exhibitors onto the show floor for the attendees that are participating in that conference and visiting the trade show floor. So now it's beyond a booth. People want more than a booth, or what's this booth going to do for me? So we are moving into sponsorships and a lot of experiential sponsorships. Trade shows are different now post-COVID. Large groups of people, what those people are wanting to accomplish and see and change. We've seen a real change of that since 2020. So that more creative we can be, but we're not the only trade show that these exhibitors can make their investments. We do have to stand out, and what we're pitching to them has to be memorable and experiential, which is one of my favorite things, being memorable, being out there, being authentic. Some of the ideas that we come up with on the show floor, we want an exhibitor to be like, never have I seen an opportunity like this before. And we want the attendees who are participating in this to have a return on emotion. So, the magic that we create is return on investment for our exhibitors and sponsors, and a return on emotion for the attendees that are making the investment to come to these conferences. So that's where I spend a lot of my time with my sales team.
Yes. And you're right. There are a lot of conferences. I consult for clients that go to trade shows. We used to actually work with a lot of associations and trade shows, but yes, they're huge investments. So you want to pick the right ones. And boy, when you said return on investment, ROI is just the magic, right? That is what it's all about. It's like when you deal with price or cost, yes, this is how much you're paying, but what are you getting back? Obviously, you want it to be exponential. I laugh at when you said there's an association for everything, because when we were working with associations, that was really before the digital age. And we had a list of associations that was bigger than a dictionary. And it's just amazing how many different associations there are.
Hey, I believe I had that book too at one point in my journey as a salesperson. So I am a unicorn in the statement. I love making cold calls, Kay. I love it. It is my
I'm not surprised. My
favorite thing to do. I manage a team now, so I don't really get to make outbounds, but my mindset was always, I get the opportunity to make cold calls. I looked at it as a challenge. All right, I'm going to make 20 cold calls. And my goal is none of these people are expecting me. They don't want to talk to me. But between my personality and startling statements, how many of these people can I warm up and move into something else? I used to look at what's my closing rate on where did I get from this? And I loved cold calls. And I remember I bought the association book. It was so big. And I would literally make cold calls out of it because I was trying to get business from association clients, and I loved it. So I remember the book, and I love making cold calls. Back in today, when I'm on my sales team about making outbound calls, I said, when they're not making the activity, I said, give me 15 companies and I'll make the calls for you. That's how much I miss making cold call outbounds. I just love it. It's a challenge that I literally love doing because it's something you can see results on.
Well, and I actually have to agree. I like making cold calls. I don't know if I love it as much as you, but when you make cold calls, your expectations are pretty low. You're expecting them to say no. So it's such a feeling of a big win. That it's fun. Like I said, you just have to expect that you're going to be hung up on or whatever. But if you're not, it's really fun. So you mentioned a startling statement. And of course, you had a few examples of when you call, but you said sometimes you'll just really go out there and say something kind of outrageous. Do you have any examples of what you might say?
If you were to ask me today, Kay, my calendar is jam-packed. I'm on vacation for the next 2 days. If someone says, how are you doing? I'd be like, honestly, I'm surviving today. I'm not thriving. And they're like, oh, because everyone expects you to say fine. I said, there's 2 buckets in life. I'm either thriving, I'm on all cylinders and I am going, or I'm surviving and I'm barely hanging on. They're like, she's a real person. She just gave me a real answer. Instead of just saying, I'm good. The startling statement today is like, I'm surviving, Kay. I'm not thriving, but I'm here and we're doing it. That's a startling statement. And I deliver it naturally because it's how I feel.
It's true. And that brings to mind a point that sometimes on LinkedIn, people will ask how people are doing. And you know what? Everybody's doing awesome. Nobody ever admits, this is a tough time. People don't want to admit that, but of course we all have those. So I'm sure it's refreshing that you're just honest. You have ups and downs.
Some of my opening questions to someone, when you join a Zoom and it's a group call and you're waiting for someone to get on there, like the rest of the people. So you're just this awkward silence of what are we doing? There are 2 questions that I love to ask. You know what my questions are?
No.
How many?
I want to hear though.
Okay. Because this is not many people are asking these questions. How many unread emails do you have in your inbox right now? I love that one. It's not funny. You'll learn from people. Are they organized? How do they file it? Are they chaotic? Like, what is it? It's a great one. It's a great one. My second one
my name is Kay, so that tells you I'm chaotic. Yeah, I probably have 200 and 200. And I've been aggressive in unsubscribing to emails because, that makes it even worse. You end up deleting every single time. We're like your prospects, they're also getting all these emails. So,
Exactly.
What's your other question?
So my next question is, I asked them, are you on TikTok? And they'll say yes or no. Most people say yes. And I said, what's on your For You page right now? It always gives me the giggles. What are you seeing? Because it blows my mind and it's always fun conversation. Somehow, I ended up on Snake Talk a couple of weeks ago. And it was filled with snakes, which is weird. I don't like snakes. I don't know what was going on. But it always gives me the giggles and it's icebreakers. It's being memorable. It's being authentic. Who else is out there asking, are you on TikTok and what are you seeing right now? I'm seeing Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift all over the Super Bowl. That's me right now.
Well, I think that's everybody.
Well, good. And I'm glad it's not me, but those are just me. Those are those pieces of being different and being authentic. Who else is asking those questions, but delivering it in a way of some people may just be on mute till the meeting starts. Not me. Gift of gab. I'm going to lean into that conversation and build something. They might not remember the rest of our meeting, but they'll be like, this girl was at my meeting today talking about TikTok. That's the point, Kay.
That's right. You are standing out, girl. I love it. I have loved our conversation and it unfortunately has come to an end, but you are just awesome. You're awesome. Your energy, enthusiasm. One last thing I wanted to mention is that, yes, you said you love being in sales, but you love even more managing a team and celebrating their success, making them successful. And that's got to be very gratifying for you.
Yeah, I love that. I've been a salesperson. I've won the hardware. I've seen that where I am in my life now, where it gives me my most fulfillment is being a manager and watching my team succeed. When my team succeeds, I succeed. When they're up there winning AE of the year or breaking records, personal records, like I love that because I know I have a piece of that and helping them be the best they can be. And I'm never upset when an AE moves on because that means I want them to continue to grow. I still keep up with reps that used to work for me. I love to see them grow in their career. So I love managing people. I love bringing in green people and teaching them sales 101 and what that means, and then watching them grow in their careers forever. I love that.
Well, I think that they are very lucky to have you, and I'm sure appreciate you. It sounds like you have great relationships with them. So on that note, Lacey, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast, giving us some really great specifics. I told you beforehand, I want specifics, things that you listeners can write down and really remember and put into action. And you delivered. So thank you so much, Lacey, for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Kate, for having me. It's been great. Read your book. It's amazing. I love it. I love reading your book. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for the shout out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Sales, your source for secrets you can use to make more sales. Check the show notes for links and contact information. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please spread the word by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. You can always learn more by going to uncopyablesales.com/podcast. Until next time, go out and supercharge your sales like a true uncopyable rock star.